Good morning on the 16th of January and welcome to our daily post, scriptures, thoughts and ideas that we hope will be helpful, uplifting and maybe challenging for this day. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 6 provides the opening scripture. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. To read the Bible in a year today, we keep moving through Genesis chapters 39 and 40 and Matthew chapter 11. Thoughts of the day. Goals are the roadmaps that guide you and show you what is possible for your life. The most important thing about goals is having one. When you determine what you want, you have made the most important decision in your life. You have to know what you want in order to attain it. The motivational thought for the day. Prosperity is only an instrument to be used, not a deity to be worshipped. Wise words. On this day, in 1219 on this day, floods in the northern Netherlands after a storm killed thousands of people. In 1572, Thomas Howard, the 4th Duke of Norfolk, was tried and convicted of high treason for his part in the Ridolfi Plan to restore Catholicism in England. In 1765, French astronomer Charles Messier catalogued M41, the galactic cluster in Canis Major. In 1868, on this day, refrigerator car was patented by William Davis, a fish dealer in Detroit. He had an interest in that. 1879, on this day, January record 13 inches of snowfalls in New York City. It was broken in January the 7th, 1996. And in 1889, Australian record high temperature of 128 degrees Fahrenheit or 53 degrees centigrade was recorded in the town of Cloncurry in Queensland. It was like curry that day. It was pretty hot. The personal story of the day. The title, Humble Submission. Don't ask me, I just work here, are the words often spoken by someone wanting to avoid responsibility, not as an expression of submission to authority. The obvious intent in most cases is to pass the buck, if not the blame, to someone higher up. Actually, though, it could be a great statement of submission if those words were said as an acknowledgement that the person is doing as told. It would reflect an obedient attitude, that of one who is submissive to whoever is in charge. Unfortunately, we are more prone to the sarcastic version than the submission version. Yet God calls us to submission and gives us a model to follow, Jesus Christ. He said, I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me, in John chapter 6 and verse 38. Knowing what God wanted him to do kept Jesus from getting sidetracked. The crowd wanted him to feed them from then on. That was their will, but he would not submit to their desires because he was already submitted to the will of the Father. And it is clear that he not only knew God's will, but was submitted to it and determined to carry it out. There was no sarcasm in his voice as he said these words because they came from a submissive heart What a contrast to the self-serving words of the crowd who said, "Give us this bread," in verse 34. They were asking for what they wanted. Do your words come from a submissive or a self-serving heart? When you pray, which matters most, your will or God's? Wise words and thoughts to contemplate and, if appropriate, incorporate into our daily practice. The devotional thoughts of the day. The first, the poor need the most care. The scripture from Matthew 7, verse 18, references from James 2, verses 14 to 19. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. James has not quite finished driving home the importance of care for the lowly and poor in the church. He has already said that the failure to do so characterises self-deluding religion. See chapter 1, verse 27. Now he says that this failure indicates a false or dead faith. See verse 17. He is reiterating and illustrating his earlier point, in verse 27 of chapter 1, that God is pleased by religious faith that expresses itself not just in words, but also in deeds that care for the poor and the needy. He particularly emphasises care for those in the church, using the term brother or sister, to note that this particular needy group are fellow believers. Verse 15. They should be the special focus of our generosity and mercy. Good words and intentions alone do not measure up to God's standard for the practice of true faith. If we truly want to live wisely, we need to pay careful attention to the list of things that James tells us to avoid. These include judging with evil thoughts, that's favoritism, opposing God's judgments, and failing to show mercy. These are important words for us to take in and meditate upon and act upon where appropriate. The second thought for the day, healthy fear of God. Scripture from Daniel 5 and verse 56. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. Man is plagued with many fears, some of them odd. Mysophobia is the fear not of mice, but of dirt. Hydrophobia is the fear of water. Nyctophobia is the fear of darkness. Acrophobia is the fear of high places. Xenophobia is the fear of strangers, and claustrophobia, the fear of confined spaces. Triskaidekaphobia is the fear of the number 13. If you want to look it up, this is how you spell it. Triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia. Unfortunately, many people who have learned to fear things that they probably shouldn't have never learned to fear God, and Belshazzar was one of those people. Whatever other fears he may have had, a fear of the God of Israel was not one of them. In the midst of a great feast, the king, who was a grandson of King Nebuchadnezzar, ordered the gold and silver vessels taken from the temple by his grandfather in Jerusalem to be put on display. Then, with utter disregard for the sacred nature of these utensils and with no concern for God, Belshazzar profaned them by using them in his drunken revelry. It was not until a hand appeared and wrote on the palace wall of God's judgment that this arrogant king began to fear. By then it was too late. His fate was sealed. He'd been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Many people today treat God flippantly. They use his name in vain. They trample his standards of righteousness underfoot. They flout their sin in his face. They treat God's people with disdain and contempt. Yet they show no fear. Only when it's too late for many of them will they realize what fools they have been. Be assured that one day everyone will fear God. The choice is yours and mine, and we must choose wisely. Once again, wise words to take on board. The facts of the day. The British anthem was performed the most times in a single performance. In 1909, while waiting for King Edward VII, who was getting dressed, a German band played the British national anthem 17 times. Everybody knew the words. The Star-Spangled Banner became the US national anthem in 1931. Prior to that, the anthem was My Country 'Tis of Thee, which had the same melody line as Britain's national anthem God Save the Queen. This was based on music written by John Bull in 1619, and Bull's melody has been used more than any other song in national anthems. The closing thought for the day: sin has many tools, but a lie is the handle which fits them all. Again, wise words to bear in mind. Thank you for joining us. We do hope that you'll find the scriptures and thoughts and ideas helpful and uplifting, and we hope that you'll come back for some more tomorrow. And in the meantime, may the Lord bless your day. Bye for now.